What happens when a giant anaconda grabs a defenseless baby elephant right in front of its mother? No one expected a gorilla to emerge from the jungle. What happened next shocked even wildlife researchers. You ever had one of those days where you do something good, something really decent, and the universe decides, hey, let's punish that? That was my Tuesday. And believe me, Tuesdays in the jungle don't mess around. It started early in the morning. The air was thick like soup you don't want to eat, humid, sticky, filled with buzzing things that look at you like you owe them money. Iruma, my name, just your average African elephant mother trying to raise a decent kid in a world that's clearly lost its mind. My son, Mava, bright-eyed, big-hearted, barely 3 seasons old and already nosing around like he owns the place. You should have seen him, flapping those floppy ears trying to trumpet like his grandpa used to. Kid had no idea that the jungle doesn't care how cute you are. It just waits for you to blink. Anyway, we'd wandered a bit too far off the migration route. No GPS, no signs, just gut instinct and mud. Lots of mud. We were looking for clean water. The last patch had turned into something you'd scrape off your boots. That's when we found it. A swampy basin that glistened like a trap wrapped in a present. Mava ran ahead. Of course he did. He always did that thing where he'd squeal with joy at the dumbest frog croak, chasing butterflies like they were handing out candy. I was only a few paces behind when I heard it. A sound I'll never forget. It wasn't a splash. It was more like the earth took a sharp breath and didn't like what it found. I turned, and there he was, halfway down, halfway wrapped, my son, my baby, in the grip of an anaconda longer than the lies politicians tell during campaign season. It had come out of nowhere, camouflaged in muck, coiled in the weeds, just waiting. This wasn't your TV snake drama. This thing didn't hiss dramatically. It moved, like muscle and malice rolled into one. You could feel it tighten, every second stealing breath from a creature that had never done anything but love everything it saw. I charged, of course. Any mother would. But what people don't tell you about being an elephant in a swamp? You might weigh 4 tons, but mud doesn't care. It grabs your feet like unpaid taxes, and slow, heavy, relentless. I tried to stomp it. I screamed, trumpeted, thrashed. The herd? They scattered like wind-blown laundry. Some stood frozen, others fled. Cowards? Number just smart enough to know when the rules had changed. And me? I stayed. Because when it's your child getting dragged into a death spiral, you don't leave. You fight with everything you've got, even if it's not enough. The swamp stank of fear and rotting things. My vision blurred. Not just from sweat and tears and from sheer fury, but all I could do was shout into the void. The jungle just watched, indifferent, unimpressed, and that's when it happened. Out of the green, through the trees, came something unexpected. Broad shoulders, black fur, 2 eyes that looked more human than half the politicians I've seen on ranger patrols. A gorilla. Big one. Alpha male. And he didn't come strolling in like some curious tourist. He moved with purpose, with intent, like he'd seen enough nonsense for one day and decided, not on my watch. What happened next? Oh, you're not ready. What came after changed everything. Stick around. You really don't want to miss how this unfolds. Now listen, I've seen some weird things out here. I've seen a crocodile bite off more than it could chew, literally. I've seen a leopard try to chase a porcupine and end up with a face full of regret. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what this gorilla did next. He didn't roar. He didn't beat his chest like some cartoon. He just walked, straight into the mud, like gravity worked for him. Calm, focused, like he was clocking in for work and the snake was on his list of overdue problems. The anaconda noticed him, sure. It gave that little flick of its tongue, that back off, this one's mine move. But the gorilla? He didn't flinch. He didn't posture. He looked at that snake like he'd been dealing with nuisances his whole life, and this one just made it personal. Meanwhile, I was still stuck, my legs half sunk in the swamp like the world's slowest anchor. Mava wasn't moving anymore, not screaming, not squirming. That silence hit me harder than any stampede ever could. My heart thudded like war drums. Was I watching my child slip away? And this gorilla? Was he here to help, or just pick up the leftovers? Then he did it. The big guy lunged. No warning, no hesitation. One arm slammed down onto the snake's midsection like he was trying to crush a log in half. And the sound that came out of that serpent? That wasn't just pain, that was surprise. Like, what in the swamp just hit me? Now, the anaconda didn't take that quietly. It whipped around, fast like a snapping cable, and bam! It struck, clamped right down on the gorilla's forearm. I flinched. I thought he was done. But guess what? He didn't even pause. He used his other arm to grab the snake by the throat, or whatever counts as a throat on something that looks like a living fire hose, and started pulling. And not gently either. He pulled like someone trying to rip a root out of the earth. That snake coiled tighter, trying to finish Mava off before this intruder ruined dinner. But now the gorilla had momentum. And let me tell you something. When 400 pounds of fury meets cold-blooded arrogance, something's gotta give. The two of them went down in the muck, wrestling like old rivals at a family reunion. Mud flew, leaves scattered. The swamp, quiet till now, came alive with birds screaming overhead and frogs jumping ship like they saw the apocalypse. And me? I tried again to move. I had to. Mava needed me. But the more I struggled, the deeper I sank. I screamed, a sound that ripped from my lungs and echoed like thunder across the basin. It was anger, desperation, guilt, everything in one. And then, a sound, soft but real. Mava coughed. He was alive. Barely, but alive. That was the spark I needed. I threw myself forward, using every ounce of strength I had to break the suction of the mud, inch by inch. Rage in my chest, fire in my gut. My baby was breathing, and I wasn't letting him go. And the gorilla? He was still there, still fighting. Not for food, not for glory, for something else entirely. This is it. We're at the edge now. What happens next? It will flip everything you thought you knew. Stay with me. You don't want to miss how this ends. I wish I could tell you the swamp suddenly parted and angels sang. Spoiler, they didn't. What happened next was raw, loud, and absolutely real, just how life works out here. The gorilla, still locked in that miserable tangle with the anaconda, wasn't slowing down. If anything, he was gaining ground. His arms, smeared with mud and bite marks, moved with this wild kind of rhythm, like he was powered by something more than muscle, something deep, something personal. You don't fight like that unless you've seen things, felt things. The anaconda, for its part, wasn't giving up without a show. It coiled around the gorilla's torso, squeezing hard enough to make bark fall from the nearby trees. And yet, and I'll never forget this, the gorilla looked straight at me, right at me. It wasn't a look that said, "Help me." It said, "I've got this. You take care of him." That was it. That's when I broke free. I tore through the muck like it owed me money. Reached Mava, who was limp but breathing. A little bruised, a little dazed, but his eyes fluttered open when I touched his trunk to mine. That spark was still there. My baby was still himself. But we weren't safe yet. The fight behind us had turned into something else entirely, not a struggle, but a statement. The gorilla slammed the anaconda's head into a fallen log with a sound that made even the birds go silent. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't elegant. It was primal. And somehow justified. The snake's grip loosened. One final twist, one heavy grunt, and it slithered back. Not dead, but beaten. Maybe even confused. Like for once it had picked the wrong fight. The gorilla stood up, chest heaving, mud dripping from his arms. His shoulder bled, his face was scratched, but his posture unshaken. He looked at me again, one slow nod. And then, like he hadn't just pulled off the impossible, he walked away. Just like that. Didn't wait for applause. Didn't ask for thanks. Just disappeared into the trees like some old spirit the jungle itself had sent. And I stood there, shaking. Not from fear. From the realization that something incredible had just happened. And no one would believe it. But I would. Mava would. And maybe, someday, this story will matter. Because that's the thing, isn't it? The jungle doesn't care who you are, what you've done, or what you planned for the day. It doesn't follow rules, but every once in a while when everything feels like it's crashing down, when life grabs you by the throat and starts to squeeze, someone steps in. Not a hero, not a legend, just someone who refuses to let injustice win.